a history major. He's graduating in spring of '24.
Thank you, Dr. Minus. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is P.Galvan. My research is titled The Hierarchy of Hate. I'll be presenting all my research analysis on the social hierarchy of the 1920s Ku Klux Klan in Texas. Before I go any further, I just want to let you all know that this is an historical analysis and nothing more, so let's get right to it. The Klan was formed in December of 1865 by a couple of former Confederate soldiers in Pulaski, Tennessee. What was once a simple social club became one of the most infamous hate groups in United States history. Now, the Klan was very angry at the fact that African Americans were having the opportunity to integrate into American society. Now, in order to counter this, the Klan donned the famous white hoods that you see above and started to scare both black families and white families that supported African American progression. Eventually, these tactics started to change, and the Klan committed mass lynchings, stabbings, and shootings. And this took Congress quite some time to realize the amount of damage the Klan was causing throughout the South. And in 1870, Congress passed the Enforcement Act and the Ku Klux Klan Act, which will allow for military intervention throughout the South that has been affected by Klan activity. The Klan eventually dissolved for quite a bit of time, and in 1915, a man by the name of William Joseph Simmons went to Stone Mountain in Georgia, lit a big wooden cross on fire, and declared the second coming of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, after the second coming in 1915, the Klan saw its highest membership in their history, with a total of 2 to 3 million throughout the 1920s, nationwide. And in order to ensure the survival and the structure, they set up a social hierarchy. The hierarchy included the Imperial Wizard, who was the leader of the Invisible Empire, which was code word for the National Klan, and he would don a green robe. The Grand Dragon was the leader of the realm, which was the state leader, and he would don a oranges-like robe. The Exalted Cyclops was the leader of the chapters, and he donned a white robe with red linings. There was also the Grand Club, which were the pastors of the Klan, and the Imperial Nighthawks, which were the entertainers of the Klan, and eventually, in the 21st century, they started becoming the guards of the Klan. There was other titles I didn't mention, such as the Hydras, the Great Titans, the Goblins, the Grand Terrors, the Ghouls, the Turks, and the Kleagles. If I keep on going, it'll actually take me 15 minutes to finish the slide. But one thing about the Klan was that they were very organized, and when I started to look at leadership in different states, I noticed that there was a common trend, was that most of the notable leaders were either rich white men or they were big name politicians. And I had that same assumption when it came to learning about Texas, but when I started to look at Texas leadership, I noticed that my whole assumption began to dissolve, and this led to the creation of my research questions. Now, with the Klan having a massive social hierarchy, the organization desired people with local social status to fill leadership roles, or the desire meant to affect the Klan's image and progression throughout communities in Texas. Bless you. Now, the methods that I used to answer these research questions was the analysis of two types of sources: primary and secondary sources. Primary sources that I analyzed were Klan collections that came from chapters either from Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Uvalde, or Amarillo, Texas. And I was able to get them at the Briscoe Center for American History at UT Austin, the Dallas Historical Society, the Southwest Collection Special Collections Library at Texas Tech, and the Woodson Research Center at Rice University. I also analyzed the secondary sources such as books, articles, and academic journals that talked about the Klan both nationally and also within Texas. Now, one recurring element that I noticed when I was looking through all of these types of collections was that the community was everything to the Ku Klux Klan. In the Grand Dragon Papers of 1915, the Great Titan for the realm of Texas stated that the people that they wanted, the people that they desired to fill these leadership roles were individuals that respected the law, that were true Americans, and most importantly, well-established community leaders. Now, what did this mean? Well, this meant that you didn't have to be the most richest person on the block to become a Klan leader. Better yet, you don't even have to be a big-name politician to become a Klan leader. All you had to be was a good citizen to the community, whether you were involved with volunteer work or charities. And what was the reason why they wanted these types of people within Klan leadership? Well, it's because since these members of society were already well-established community leaders, then that means that they can influence the Klan's image more onto the Texas community. And of course, an example will be up here with this image at Clan Day at the State Fair, which was taken in 1923, and you see all of these community members within Dallas joining up to celebrate the Klan in the parade. Now, the biggest example of all of these types of community leaders becoming Klan leaders was the Dallas Klan number 66. Hiram Wesley Evans was the Imperial Wizard at the time. Before he became the Imperial Wizard, he was a well-known dentist in the Texas community. J.D. Van Winkle was the Exalted Cyclops for the Dallas Klan. He was a well-known businessman and also a well-known community member. Z.E. Martin was the Great Titan for the realm of Texas, and he was a very notable pharmacist, and was also part of fraternal orders. And lastly, Ralph H. Cameron, who was the Grand Dragon for the realm of Texas, was very popular with the community and also part of fraternal orders. Now, all of the things that these men had in common was the fact that they were all well-established community members. They were well known, whether they were participating in charities or volunteer work, or they were also well known due to their local jobs. And one of the biggest ones is fraternal orders, which included the Freemasons, Elks Lodge, and the Knights of Columbus. It's okay. Then everything started to change when the Klan started growing bigger in Texas. In the mid-1920s, there was an estimate of 150,000 members within the Texas Klan. And the National Klan Committee decided that they wanted Texas to be run very differently than other states. And in 1925, they released a booklet that stated that if there was Klan chapters that had a total of 25 to 100 members, and that meant that they would have to establish 20 committees within that one chapter. And out of the 20 committees, only 8 of them stood out. The Welfare Committee checked the health and safety of both the community and Klansmen. The Civic Committee advocated for the advancement of Texas cities and the improvement of public schools and political office. The Publicity Committee helped keep a positive image throughout the Texas community. The Intelligence Committee played a role as spies to ensure the safety of Klansmen and also pinpoint areas in the community that were not promoting true Americanism. The Religious Activities Committee helped promote religious welfare to both Klansmen and the community, which was run by the Grand Clud, who was the pastor of the Klan. The Sick Committee was made up of individuals who visited and provided assistance to the sick. The Law Enforcement Committee networked with local police departments and also advocated for law programs. And lastly, the Educational Committee advocated for Klan programs within public schools and also programs that taught true Americanism. Now, out of all the 20 committees that were formed, these 8 stood out the most because they all go back to one recurring element that kept on coming up throughout my research, was that everything the Klan was about the community. And half of these committees were formed, and they were able to go into different community circles to see what was going on in order to have a better influence throughout Texas life. The Exalted Cyclops, who was the chapter leader, would be the chairman of some of these committees. And if the Exalted Cyclops believed that he didn't need to be the chairman and that it should be going to someone else, he will appoint either an already elected Klan official, or he would elect a regular Klansman to become chairman who already has a good background of being a community leader, and eventually they will climb up in the ranks. What was really terrifying about the Klan was that even with all of the mass lynchings, stabbings, shootings, even feathering, even tarring and feathering, they had such big success within the community. They had a lot of church influence. One of the biggest examples was that in 1922, Reverend B.B. Krim of Lockhart, Texas, did a sermon called The Why and Wherefore of the Ku Klux Klan, which was a 4,000 gathering, and the Klan immediately started donating money to this church. They were very active in fraternal orders. Most of the leaders were part of social orders such as Elks Lodge, the Freemasons, and the Knights of Columbus. They were very big in public service. In 1922, a tornado hit Austin, and the Austin Klan donated money to families that were hit by the tornado and also helped with the cleanup. They were also very notable in donating to orphanages. One of the biggest ones was Hope Cottage in Dallas, Texas. The Dallas Klan gave a total of $500 to renovate the Hope cottage and sent in Klansmen to help build the structure. And on October 24th, 1923, there was Klan Day at the State Fair where they dedicated that whole day to Old Cottage. And a lot of people saw that this act was so great by the Klan that a lot of people believed that this one good deed would justify their existence. And with this whole good deed, a lot of individuals throughout Texas believed that if you were a good man, you're a true American, then you were obviously going to be part of the Klan, since the Klan has done so many great things, as of course they were trying to present it throughout the community. A big example was when the president of the Ancient and Honorable Order of the Blue Goose Work League mentioned how his wife always thought he was a Klansman because he was too good a man to not belong. And that was the sad part about the whole Klan, was that they were able to have this good image throughout the Texas community that all of their atrocities became obsolete to the Texas community. Of course, there were individuals that realized the things that they were doing, but they were good people to other parts of the community, which they were able to gain a lot of influence. And it goes back to their strategy and how they were doing this. They would elect community leaders to become Klan officials in order to gain influence throughout every aspect of Texas life. In conclusion, did the organization desire people with local social status? They did. They were looking for community leaders. Were the desire meant to affect the Klan's image and progression? Definitely. They wanted these individuals to put a good image, have the Klan have a good image throughout the community. Now, deep down, is there any time for future research? Possibly, I will say. When it comes to the leadership of the Klan, it's a very huge hierarchy, and there's a lot of names I didn't mention, so I like to look into more of the names and their duties. I might even want to look at the Klan within different decades, and for me, I would like to look at the Klan in the 1960s, since their activities were more violent, and also like their number of membership was shrinking at the time. I'd like to acknowledge the St. Edward's McNair Scholarship Program for not only fully funding my research once again, but for also not hesitating and to letting me do a second summer of research. Thank you, Dr. Myers, and thank you, Dora. I'd also like to give thanks to my research directors, Dr. Christy Wilson and Dr. Laura Wood, for not only guiding me through this research, but also for being a positive impact on my research. I got a lot of criticism for my research by quite a bit of people, and these two ladies were phenomenal, and they believed that this research was important for the field of history, so I really give them all thanks to that. I'd like to thank my family for letting me leave the Valley once again for a second summer to pursue a research topic that I was really passionate about. And lastly, this person's not up here, but I'd like to thank God for blessing me with these wonderful individuals and for guiding me and every other McNair scholar that's present here today. So all thanks goes to them. And that is my research. Thank you, everyone. Well, that is done. I'm ready for questions. I saw the way saying.
I have a question about the historiography of your subject. Did you look into that? Is it a different lens that you're bringing into the history of history?
So a lot of the history that I was looking into, I think went into the secondary, like looking at secondary sources. There was a lot of, it was all about the Klan being like a business, and also talking a lot about their atrocities, which it was kind of hard for me to like look into like their leadership. So it was kind of like everything was like a little brand new to me. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how it kind of went. And I tried my best to look at all of those sources, even though that was like the main subject of like their research. It's I was able to at least pinpoint some like areas within it about leadership. Any other questions? Yes.
So, obviously you looked at a lot of historical information. Were you able to like pinpoint maybe how or where there are currently active plans in the United States, or where they're most like predominantly located?
Somewhere like in modern
Like,
United States.
Uh-huh.
So that's a good question. At the moment, probably the most current Klan activity was recorded about maybe like 6 years ago with the Traditionalist American Knights in the Upper South. So that's probably the only Klan that's still active. But when it comes to like different states, such as like Texas or Alabama or anything like that, there's no side Klan activity, to my knowledge. Question?
What did the Klan believe in?
Hmm?
What did the Klan believe in?
What did the Klan believe in? Well, they believed in one, true Americanism, and also believed in upholding white supremacy. Of course, this was after the Civil War, when they were very angry at the fact that African Americans were free, and they wanted to, of course, make sure that they showed their dominance throughout the United States.
I wanted to know, like, what's true Americanism and, like, where is it, in what ways is it similar and also different?
That's a very good question. When it comes to true Americanism to the Klan, it's about like respecting like the Constitution a lot, like kind of going back to like the Constitution, what is written, and also like going back to like well, like whites, you know, like they were the ones that came here and established the United States. So that's how it goes. That's how like true Americanism is really defined by the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, when we think of Americanism, we think of something way different. We don't think about white superiority or anything like that. I think it's something way different. So, yeah, that's how the Klan would define it. Any other questions? Yes.
Did you find any names of like politicians or like law enforcement officials that have ties to the KKK now and in the past?
So now I wasn't able to, but in the past, the Klan was very big within the police departments in Austin and Dallas. There wasn't any notable like. They didn't uphold any notable Klan leadership position. They were just regular Klansmen. There was a lot of conspiracies that they committed, like lynchings themselves too, things like that. That's why they got away with it pretty good. When it came to notable names, within Texas, there wasn't any like notable like government officials that were within the Klan. There might have been some county judges that were Klansmen and not like the exalted Cyclops or a goblin or anything like that. Yes.
What do you think inspired these names?
That's a good one. So during Reconstruction, the Klan actually wanted to sound very smart, and they wanted to sound like they were highly educated individuals. So they based up all their names from Greek mythology in order to show that type of like status that they were very educated individuals. And that's how they got the names. In my opinion, they were crazy when it came to these names, but that's how the Klan kind of viewed themselves. They were highly educated white men, and they were going to use that type of like education to show like, hey, we're better, or smarter, things like that. So, yes.
You mentioned how the KKK just like really cared about community and providing a lot of service for the community, even though that, obviously the group is like an elite group and all. Do you think that they were wanting to pick community leaders to hide that aspect of their group?
I believe so, in order to keep like a really good image, and also like their crimes were still acknowledged. And the Austin Statesman released a paper saying thanks to the Ku Klux, which not only released dates of their like donations to charities, but also of their lynchings, shootings, and stabbings in the Austin Statesman. So this was published to the public. So a lot of their crimes were still, they were still acknowledged, but due to all of the good things that they were also doing at the time, it really did overshadow, which, in my opinion, was really strange, especially since you would hear African Americans, getting lynched and other minority groups. So yeah, it is very interesting, but yeah, if it was there just to make sure that their image is still positive. Any other questions, or as a time?
I guess that's it. Thank you. Podium, a lot of you already know this because I announced this morning. His research from last summer, which was on Texas secession, is going to be published in the McNair Association
another one of our scholars that graduated in May, Diego Garza, his paper's going to be published, and we had 2 last year. So all of you who did research this summer, you have the opportunity to submit your paper to the NAP, Associated Professionals National Journal as well. The calls for proposals for papers will come out early in the fall. I happen to be on that editorial board, which I don't select them. The papers are done with a blind review, so the person, we get readers and the students in the scholars field, and they get feedback from the scholar. He has a few minor revisions to do, but his paper is going to be published. So I encourage all of you